I think I've always been an app geek, right? It's like I've had a chance to immerse myself in this industry in the last, 13, 14, 15 years. And to be able to see this up close it completely changes your perspective on just sit with it for hours on end and just watch it all roll by. Because you kind of you get to visit a cockpit at the end of a flight, or you just something's on the ramp, you go take a look, and to really do that, like immerse yourself in it is just amazing. So thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it, and it's a totally different perspective.
So is it like a cockpit casual video? Like, do I do a good job of capturing the essence?
Absolutely. Oh, for sure. Oh, well, I feel like we need to pipe in some jazz.
Yes.
Just to
We do get quite a bit of variety in our lives ferrying empty airliners around the world, but we also see the same trip over and over again sometimes. Picking up newly converted 767 BCFs from Singapore is one of the repeats, but having Jon Ostrower along from the Air Current really added an element of freshness to the round-the-world adventure. Starting the trip as passengers in Philly and airlining to Singapore eastbound via Doha, then flying the trip by continuing east to Miami via Honolulu made for a 4-day circumnavigation with limited downtime. Not too many people have had the opportunity to experience it.
You travel, you go somewhere.
Yeah.
Like you go to a destination, you stop there for an amount of time. Yeah, layover, fair enough. But we entered Qatar.
Yeah.
We technically entered Singapore.
Yeah.
And then we left.
Yeah.
We did not spend a full day at any of these places. So it's this weird sort of blurring of the idea of place, right? You're sort of
it absolutely is, and that's it's why I say I've been everywhere, but I haven't really been anywhere.
Then where you have been is inside of a tin can,
right?
The size of a minivan and a half.
Yeah.
For what? We'll be on total 20 hours.
Bob and I have been flying together so long, we've already discussed everything there is to talk about. Having Jon along was nice because we actually had things to say. I've followed Jon for a long time on social media, and we've spoken quite a bit offline. But after nearly 3 days in a minivan and a half together, we're now basically family. By nature of the job, the majority of our time is spent sitting in close quarters for hours on end. International long hauls inherently boring, and crossing the Pacific in a modern aircraft with controller-pilot data link communications, or CPDLC, there's really nothing to do but monitor the aircraft, eat, talk, read books, and stare out the window.
What is that? 370 is not available. We're going to go to 35. So it's not a 35.
I hope that doesn't put us in the freaking top.
Of course it will.
They need to deviate a little right there.
The sun set as we neared the Philippines, and we encountered a line of thunderstorms there which required some minor deviations. The line of storms made for a nice light show as we passed through the gaps to begin the very long stretch across the open water. The only two bits of land we'd see between here and Honolulu would be Guam and Wake Island. Flying opposite the Earth's rotation at nearly 600 miles per hour, the sun sets and rises pretty quickly. We only had about 6 hours of darkness on this leg before the sun rose again. An interesting fact, over almost all of the North Pacific Ocean, from the coast of California all the way to the Philippines, and as far north as the Aleutian Islands all the way down south of Majuro, the airspace is controlled in Oakland, California by the Oakland ARTCC Oceanic Operations Center, or KZAC. This means that we make our position reports over HF to Air Inc., who relays our position to Oakland and forwards clearances back to us on the aircraft. Air Inc. is a private company different from the federal ATC employees working in Oakland, and the Air Inc. facility is nearby in San Francisco. This is why you hear us calling San Francisco over HF when summoning them. When we're CPDLC equipped, such as on this flight, we text message KZAC directly through data link and skip the middleman entirely. In an ever-increasing trend, the Oakland controller on CPDLC recognized our call sign, and we had a short text conversation about Cockpit Casual. How cool is that?
You always reach a point in the trip where you're like, okay, all right.
Coming in like over the Pacific, where it's just water.
Yeah, and you're not talking.
Pretty cloud, and then it's like just like Hawaii. It's like the islands kind of come out. It's like that's
Go down to 8,000, expect 8 left from line now. What's up?
Hawaiian 11 Heavy, clear direct Selleck, expect RNAV Yankee, 8 left, reduce speed to 210.
Okay, direct Selleck, expect RNAV Yankee, slowing down to 210, Hawaiian 11 Heavy.
Outcap.
Hawaiian 11 Heavy, maintain 3,600 till Selleck, cleared RNAV Yankee, runway 8 left approach, and maintain 210 knots.
Okay, 3,600 to Selleck, establish cleared RNAV Yankee, 8 left, Hawaiian 11 Heavy.
Approach Transair 6 is at 6,000. We are Zulu.
Transair 6, HCF approach, roger, fly heading 290, vectors visual approach, runway 4 right, descend and maintain 4,000.
290, 4,000, Transair 6, I'd like to request the islands.
It was a routine visual approach into 8 left at Honolulu, completely typical. But even after hundreds of times, it's mesmerizing, especially after such a long, mundane journey over the ocean. I'm glad John got to experience such a good iteration of it.
Hawaiian 205, descend and maintain 3,000, reduce speed to 180.
3,000, 180, 205.
Sell it down to 3,100. Is it 31 now? All right, here we go.
HCF from American 31, 2.5, climbing to 4,000.
American 31, HCF approach, radar contact, maintain 4,000, turn right heading 170.
Kill, maintain 4,000.
LDAVs. Now we're set.
The contrast of the busy terminal area around Hawaii and the peace of overflying the Pacific is vivid.
Did you say 2:30 till when?
Nomadic 123 Heavy, maintain 180 knots to a 7-mile final. Numerous VFR targets in the pattern at Kalaeloa. Conic Tower 118.1. Good day. Hawaiian 205, turn right, heading. Heavy 13012, gust 19, runway 8 right, clear for takeoff.
8 right, clear for takeoff, United 2719 Heavy.
Territory 06001, hold short of taxiway Echo.
Hold short, taxiway Echo 00001.
Cyrus Mako 347 for 48 over flexible. Mako 347, Honolulu Tower, runway 4 continue. 48, continue, Mako 347. Friendly 50, runway 4 right, clear to land, hold short, runway 8 left, wind 13013, gust 19.
4 right, clear land, hold short, 8 left, 50.
Able to land and hold short. Nomadic 123 Heavy, wind 13013, gust 19, runway 8 left, clear to land, hold short, runway 4 left. Line 248, hard track, cross runway left at Juliet.
Cross 8 left at Juliet, line 248.
Cross at 248, turn right, Delta, taxi, Charlie to parking, monitor ground.
Delta, taxi, Charlie to park, monitor ground, line 248.
Friendly 50, long landing is approved, runway 4 right, clear to land.
4 right, clear land, long landing, 350.
We'll land home short.
185. Labs 20.
Line 16, heavy, hard track, cross runway left at Juliet, traffic 5 mile final.
Cross 8 left at Juliet, line 16 Heavy.
Turn left on Delta, taxi via Zulu to Charlie 7.
Alright, Delta Zulu to Charlie 7, 143, good day.
30. Speed brake R.
approaching Oahu west to east, we flew right over Ko'olina, a golf course Ava and I have played, and then across the inlet for Pearl Harbor on short final.
United 2719, you want us over to departure?
United 2719 Heavy, contact departure.
Departure.
Maka 347, 113.013, gust 19, runway 4 right, circumnavigate. Alright, take a line from Maka 347. Medevac 60 Victor Papa, Honolulu Tower, cross runway 4 departure, runway 4 left, line up and wait, traffic landing, crossing, runway crossing, downfield.
Cross 4 right, line up and wait 4 left, Medevac 60 Victor Papa.
Runway 50, turn left at the end, cross runway 4 left, traffic is holding in position, taxi Alpha Whiskey Zulu.
Left at the end, cross 4 left, Alpha Whiskey Zulu, running 6. And, our Medevac 60 Victor Papa looks like you got a cardboard FOD right between the runways.
Medevac 0 Victor Papa, I'm sorry, say again?
You got FOD, cardboard at Foxtrot right between the runways.
Medevac 0 Victor Papa, roger. Tower, Southwest 3049 is on the visual 4 right. Southwest 1957, Hall Tower, cross runway left at Juliet, tax runway right.
Okay, cross 8 left to Juliet, cleared to 8 right, Southwest 1957.
Southwest 3049, Honolulu Tower, runway 48, continue. Continue 4 right, South 3049.
Tower, runway 11 heavy with you, 5 mile final, 8 left, line up Yankee.
Line 11 heavy, Hall Tower, wind 14011, gust 19, runway 8 left, clear to land, hold short, runway 4 left, arriving, Boeing 737.
Okay, 8 left, clear to land, hold short of 4 left, Hawaiian 11 heavy.
Nomadic 123 heavy, turn left on Yankee, then contact ground.
Tower 1205, visual 8 left, 170 or slower.
Line 248, runway 8 right, line up and wait, traffic overfly the runway.
8 right, line up and wait, Hawaiian 248.
Medevac 0 Victor Papa, wind 14011, runway 4 left, clear for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff, 4 left, Medevac 60 Victor Papa.
It really doesn't matter how exhausted you are after a long stretch in the cockpit. Toothpicks in your eye sockets to keep your eyelids open, whatever. But the moment you open that door and walk down the stairs in the fresh air, a second wind always hits, making rest a challenge. John was the first one out the door, and before we could even get the times in the logbook, Ostrower was on the ramp, DSLR camera in hand, snapping shots of the jet, the ramp, and the constant flow of F-22s doing high-performance takeoffs off of 8 right. We got into the van and made our way out to Waikiki. After checking into the hotel, we grabbed a quick bite at the Musubi Cafe and went over to the ABC store to supplement our catering order. We do always order legit catering in Honolulu, but the ABC store has fast become my go-to for self-catering. I can't get enough of the Korean fried rice breakfast tray, the Musubis, the Moco Locos. Of course, we also get our caffeinated beverages there, and Bob, as usual, needs his candy. We finished our shopping right as the exhaustion finally grabbed hold. We drew the blinds in our rooms and slept all day into the night. Our departure time was about 2 a.m., and we'd have nearly 12 hours to sleep and prepare for the final stretch.
UPS 2965 Heavy, Roger, proceed direct LA.
Getting back into the saddle with fresh clothes, a shower, and deep sleep behind us, we were ready for the 9.5-hour leg nonstop to Miami.
I got the pen.
The ground, nomadic 123, heavy detects.
Nomadic 123, heavy runway 8 right, taxi via Zulu Alpha Juliet, hold trigger runway 8 left.
Okay, 8 right via Zulu Alpha Juliet, short 8 left.
As is typical for this trip, LATAM sent an engineer, our friend Marco, to join us in Honolulu and accompanied the aircraft into Miami. Marco showed up an hour before us and serviced the engine oil, supervised fueling, and cleared any issues we had on the way in, which were minimal. At 2 a.m., Honolulu Airport is pretty much a ghost town with mainly cargo flights coming in and out. They consolidate all ATC frequencies down to one, with one controller handling almost everything from clearance to ground to tower.
Come on, 8, leaving home from airspace in 4 miles, contact center 124.1.
Go 124.1 to Waikiki.
Go set. 80. B1. BR. On the rate 0.
The first hour or so was dark, and because we maximized our rest in Honolulu, none of the three of us really caught up on emails on the ground. So once we got up to cruise and the workload lightened, we opened up our devices and got caught up on what was happening and what we missed over the last 30 hours or so. Once the sun came out on the Hawaii tracks to the mainland, I decided it was finally time to get up and give you, the viewers, a proper tour of the 767 BCF. A cargo conversion is a really extensive modification. Of course, the bulk of the changes happen from the L1 boarding door back, but a lot of modifications happen in the cockpit too. For one, the cockpit rear bulkhead is pushed back considerably. With the extra space, a lavatory is installed in the cockpit itself. Along the back wall, 3 supernumerary seats are installed which fold flat against the bulkhead. These are for jump seaters, loadmasters, heavy crew, or engineers. Looking aft from the cockpit, you step down into a short space which accommodates the L1 door, the cargo compartment access door, and a small galley. The galley has storage cabinets, a waste bin, and an oven, and even a hot pot for coffee or hot water. With the galley mod, there's no chiller or refrigeration, but the catering is often delivered with dry ice, which does a fine job at keeping things fresh between meals.
Yeah, that was actually, honestly, that was one of the most surreal sort of parts of this. Like going back in the cargo hold,
Yeah.
knowing that there's like, 82% of the speed of sound air just going rushing past you on either side, and it's like aluminum and a little bit of sidewall, and that's about it.
And a cavernous door that's being held closed by some metal latches.
Exactly. It's like you put your faith in engineering, and
Every time.
And just being back there, it's incredibly loud. It's unbelievably loud.
Yeah, the insulation is less on a freighter, right? It's on a freighter. The name of the game is saving weight, so that you can fill it with payload. And it's, obviously the cargo doesn't care how loud it is back there. So although there is still insulation back there, that's mainly for climate control. It's thin, and then you don't have those heavy plastic sidewalls and sound insulation that passenger jets have. That all goes, and then they just put a liner around the side, and it's a metal floor, and it's hard everywhere, and it's loud, and it's echoey.
Beside cutting and fitting a cargo door to the side of the main deck, a big part of the mod involves the installation of a cargo loading system, or CLS. The CLS enables the pallets or containers to lock into place and prevent load shifting. It also features a ball roller deck so that ground crews can rotate and position the cargo prior to sending it to the back. There's also an option to install a removable crew berth in the front part of the main deck where you see our bags. This aircraft didn't have one at the time, but it's likely that a crew rest compartment will eventually be fitted into the aircraft once it's in service. Other items of interest, a variety of little bins and cubbies. This one holds the crew life raft, Nomex gloves, and some survival equipment. Above the supernumeraries, 3 tray tables can be removed and fitted to the armrest, making it convenient for ACMs to eat their meal. And above those, of course, pressure demand oxygen masks stowed for quick access in the event of a depressurization. The LAV is also equipped with its own portable O2 bottle and a little red light that lets you know if the cabin altitude is too high and oxygen is required. You know, in case you find yourself in doubt whether the lightheadedness is on account of the stink or an actual pressurization issue. Once we coast in over the U.S. mainland, suddenly the peace and quiet of oceanic operations gives way to the bustle of the U.S. airspace system. Constant VHF radio chatter, numerous handoffs, route changes, and weather deviations replace the serenity of being the only airplane for hundreds, if not thousands of miles. The scenery also improves, and John got to shooting.
Down 32.6, contact Delta 126.35. Flight level 230. 2788. Level 7 for traffic to maintain level 430. 430 for level 7.
I guess we as pilots take for granted the many air-to-air plane spotting opportunities that the busy U.S. airspace affords, because every 2 minutes John was showing me awesome pics he was taking with his good camera of other planes passing above, below, and side to side. At one point, Bob put on the headset and took full control of the aircraft and radios. John and I did a little interview and joked that it was probably the first time in history that a journalist was interviewed by a pilot at altitude on a flight in the cockpit. Ha! Maybe so.
This airplane served as a passenger airliner for so many years and moved millions of passengers, you know, between South America and the United States, and Europe, and all over the place. And now it'll be around for another 20 to 25 years as a freighter, moving cargo. It's genius, really. It makes me question new build freighters, but I'm sure you could give a lot of reasons for those as well, especially long haul freighters.
You know, it's funny. This airplane was actually started in service like right as I was beginning my career covering aviation. It's I think a 2008, 2009 delivery. It was at a time when the 87 hadn't yet entered service, and it's still in development, and LATAM was actually on Chile, where the aircraft started at the time, and it spent the last 13 years flying passengers, and the pandemic was sort of the opportunity for them to take this fleet of 767s and turn them into cargo aircraft. And that's one of the big reasons that I'm here covering this story, because it really, you know, look, we see the cargo boom coming out of the pandemic, but it keeps reinforcing itself with sort of the great acceleration that COVID brought. You know, it's like e-commerce is just absolutely exploding.
Yeah.
People want stuff, and they want it with 2-day delivery.
Right.
And so whether it's horses or, you know, your, you know, coffee, right? I mean, it's like, it's all being delivered, you know, if you're ordering from Amazon or wherever. I mean,
these days you expect to be able to go online and click a few mouse clicks, and all of a sudden whatever you want is on your doorstep. Well, airplanes are behind that. I mean, they truly are.
Yeah, absolutely.
At every level.
I'm not going to express any of my opinions on politics here, just here to point out the interesting things we see and do on ferry flights. With that in mind, when we passed over El Paso at 39,000 feet, I used the 10x zoom function on my phone to try to locate the infamous border wall between El Paso and Juarez. It was incredibly difficult to see with the naked eye, but I did manage to eventually locate the miles-long, multi-billion-dollar row of rusty steel slats separating huge expanses of uninhabitable desert, and thought, well, it was worth at least showing you, so here you go. We finally started descending from Miami, and some very large storm cells in the area imparted chaos onto the terminal area. Just as we started down on arrival, we were given delay vectors and a few turns in holding while we waited for our turn to get into the mix with Miami approach. Of course, the three of us were trying to make tight flights home on the same day, so we were a bit concerned about missing them. In the end, it worked out, and we just barely made our flights, but leave it to fate to always keep us biting our nails until the final moments.
Pneumatic 123, 8,000 for 8,000.
That was Ormond 123 Heavy.
Pneumatic 123 heavy.
Pneumatic 123 Heavy, Miami approach, expect tidal. Where do you park at Miami?
We're going to be in the western view, LATAM.
Sounds good, expect tidal for wind 9.
Pilot's 9, copy.
American 1481, reduce speed to 210.
Speed to 10, American 1481.
American 1006, turn left heading 030.
030, American 1006.
Number 7 Kilo Foxtrot, descend and maintain 4,000.
Down to 4,000, 7 Kilo Fox.
Direct 702 Miami approach, your north side, correct?
That's affirmative.
Direct 702, vectors visual approach, runway 8 left. American 1006, heading 335, maintain 4,000.
335, heading 4,000 feet, American 1006.
Once we got south of the weather, we maneuvered across the Everglades south of the field to join a right downwind for the east runways. This is the normal configuration for the Miami airport, and the storms over the Gulf Coast prohibited the orderly flow of eastbound traffic from a more direct arrival path.
American 1481, notated uniform, traffic on a mile, final uniform, Victor, hold short, runway 12 with me.
Uniform Victor, hold short 12, American 1481. Good afternoon, Avianca 030, ILS, runway 90.
Avianca 030, Miami Tower, wind 150 at 7, runway 90, clear to land, cautionary turbulence and trail, heavy going at 767.
Okay, Roger, and clear to land, runway 90, Avianca 030.
If you're having 3509 heavy, it'll be about 5 minutes for you for arriving traffic.
Roger, copy.
Because the aircraft was about to enter service, LATAM asked us to complete an APU in-flight start for ETOPS purposes, which we did early in the trip. They also asked us to do an auto land. The landing in Miami was flown all the way to rollout by the autopilot, and quite frankly, it did a stellar job.
American 1481, cross runway 12 at Victor, contact ground point 8 on the other side.
Cross 12 Victor, American 1481.
For 1481, traffic off the right waits for you.
1481, thank you.
Better than you. Yeah, reverse green. 89.
Omni 123 heavy, roger, left turn Tango 7, join Sierra to the, let's go Tango to the right, there's one pushing on Sierra.
While we were taxiing into Miami, we caught a glimpse of CXD, also known as CXE's uglier sister. It was still unpainted, but actively hauling cargo between North and South America regularly. CXD had just pushed out of the cargo gates and was heading down to Bogota with a full load. Our jet, CXE, would be loaded up the next day to fly the same route. This trip ended anticlimactically when we pulled into the gate. The LATAM ground team was there to accept the aircraft and shuttle us around to the terminals to catch our flights, which we all made within 30 minutes of departure.
Yes! Very little time. We're done though. Epic trip. Beautiful. Beautiful place. Yeah, man. Where'd John go? Oh, there he is.
Aside from having John along, it was completely uneventful, but will definitely go down as a trip I'll always remember. Getting to share these adventures with someone who would otherwise never get a glimpse into our world is a great feeling, and the same reason I make these videos. I know John had a blast and definitely got a lot of footage and information over the course of just 4 days. I can't wait to see what he has to say about the experience in the air current. I guess we'll see soon.